Hello, and welcome to the Social Psychic Radio Show featuring Jason Zook. In uncertain times, we must change our focus and priorities. This show will highlight social justice issues with the goal of expanding minds and increasing unity, love, and mutual respect for ourselves and our planet. We support the Black Lives Matter movement. Our show aspires to promote social spirituality, which simply means that by coming together, we can solve any of our problems, including the goal of bringing an end to all forms of hate, discrimination, bias, or oppression. We must protect our environment, reform our criminal justice system, and protect every citizen from police brutality. When we come together, it becomes possible to bridge the gaps that plague our society and divide us from within. We the people means everyone.
Hello and welcome to the Social Psychic Radio Show. This is Jason Zook. It's a great pleasure that I introduce special guest Victoria Wieck to the show today. Victoria is an author, a renowned jewelry designer, entrepreneur, and TV personality. She's quite an inspiration, and I'm excited to have her on the show. Our guest immigrated from South Korea to Los Angeles in 1971 with her family and with only $30 to her name. Within a short period of time, Victoria adopted to a new culture, learned English, and made new friends. Her dream was to study literature or art in college, but her parents urged her to study business instead. Victoria worked full-time while completing a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from UCLA and an MBA from USC. After graduate school, Victoria was offered a marketing job at a jewelry manufacturing company in Los Angeles. Much to her surprise, she enjoyed her artistic abilities more than she ever imagined. Realizing that there's a market for high-quality, stylish jewelry at affordable prices, Victoria started her own company in 1989 on a shoestring budget to spend more time with her family. She has founded several other successful businesses since then. Our guest has worked with a variety of global retailers ranging from major department stores to duty-free stores, as well as internet and TV retailers. For the past 23 years, 19 years on HSN and 4 years on Shop HQ, Victoria has been sharing her jewelry designs with millions of viewers during her monthly shows. She's built her highly successful business following her passion for jewelry without sacrificing her family life. Throughout her career, Victoria has had to invent ways to keep her products relevant and in order to consistently outperform her competition and thrive. Victoria is the author of the upcoming book, Dollar Hobbies, which is set to be released soon. She's also the author of a science fiction novel, Shattered Sky, a 94,000-word science fiction young adult thriller. And she has her own podcast called the Dollar Hobbies podcast. It's a great pleasure I welcome Victoria to the show.
Wow, Jason, what an intro. You're making me feel really great. So I don't think maybe I shouldn't talk anymore, right?
I want to ask you this. You are truly a rags to riches story. And I know that the term rags to riches, people have different ideas of that. Can you tell our audience how you actually started out and where you are today and what got you from point A to point B in terms of your own recollection? What drove you? What got you to where you are today?
The rags to riches, the rags, I can completely sympathize, agree with. Riches, it's yet to be seen, I guess, Sure. So basically, as far as what drives me, I think that I'm a firm believer that no matter, first of all, life, I don't think I would have said this in the beginning of my journey, but today, because I'm a little bit older and supposedly wiser when you get older, one of the very, very few benefits of getting old is that I would say life will happen to you, meaning things that you don't want happening, unpleasant things, heartbreaks, financial meltdowns, personal financial meltdowns, all those things will happen. I think we were just DNA coded to experience all those things. And when we experience and embrace them, you become better at that. So it's almost like encouraging successful failures in many ways. So when those things happen, instead of sitting there wondering, why is it happening to me? How come everybody else is living happy and, joyful and doing very little of anything, and somehow they tend to have a lot more than I do? all those things can play tricks in your mind. So I'm a firm believer of doing at least the one thing, focus on the one thing that you can do for yourself. There was a great Chinese or ancient, I'm not sure if it's particularly Chinese or not, but it is a saying that I'm sure everyone agrees with, and you've heard it many times before. 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. So that single step is what I always look for. If I want to do something, I don't look for anything huge, because when you do that, you are setting yourself up for failure. So think about the one thing, put one foot in front of the other one, and think about the one thing you can do. And that one thing you can do today, not 3 years from now. So for me, when I first landed in America, the one thing that I could do, because I was pretty young, was to learn to speak English. Because without learning to speak English, I had no friends. I couldn't understand anything. Life was kind of paralyzing. This is especially before English as a second language was anything. I mean, you didn't speak English, you were basically invisible at that time. But I will say that even that the first 2 years when you didn't speak any English and I went to school, I didn't know a thing. The only thing I excelled in was math, because math is pretty universal. I had to kind of like sketch things out to talk to people. I had to like draw things out to try to explain, what I'm trying to say. So in the end, it kind of did benefit me, because I got pretty good at sketching. You might have imagined,
Sure that. When did you first discover that you were as creative as you are? Was it during that time frame when you started sketching things when you first got to the United States as a child?
Oh, actually, since I was a little kid, my earliest memory of my life, the things that are very crystal clear, there's some faint memories of things that I barely remember, but the crystal clear memories of myself goes back to when I was maybe 3 years old. I would beg my mother to read to me, because I couldn't read. Because I lived in a very small town, the same people, same kids, there were like 20 kids in school, the total school, not in class. So, you meet the same kids, same people, same parents, same teachers, same beach, like nothing. And we had TV, my parents had TV, but the connections never went that far. So that TV had mostly snow, black and white snow. So basically, that is how I saw the world. My first creativity exercise was just being imaginative, because when you're a kid and, you're pretty much on this little island, and they're talking about kids in New York City or, kids in London or whatever, it's very different. So I'd have my mother read to me. And then in school, like in grade school, when they had career day, so they would have, parents who are really successful to come and talk about, inspire kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Boys would say they want to grow up to be a fireman, policeman, all these things. Occasionally, you might have a kid that said, I want to be a lawyer. But when it was my turn, I just like blurted out, I want to be like Van Gogh. And everyone kind of laughed at me, like, because, most kids don't even know who Van Gogh is, So I think I always had very imaginative mind, and also curiosity. I was so curious about the world outside of where I was, and I just really wanted to embrace that.
I have a personal belief, being intuitive myself, that when people have a high level of creativity, that they have their own level of intuition that they rely on when creating.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Because you have to be so close to your feelings.
Yes.
You do. I think a lot of people, and I'm not going to judge anybody who is not creative, and I don't actually consider myself all that creative. Other people have told me that I was very creative, but I would say that, when I sketch out designs or when I do a collection, I always start with a feeling. Like, I'll do in the fall, a lot of times you have this beautiful, wonderful family, warm fireplace kind of moments. And it gets you into that mood. And then you're actually designing pieces that elevate that. I think when you're dealing with mostly numbers, or you've just told yourself you're not creative, so you're not even going to try to be creative, what happens is that you're suppressing a lot of your own feelings. Because if you're feeling like, I'm talking to Jason, and, Jason, normally he's this way and that way, but I wonder if he's okay, because you know what? He was just a little off today. Normally he would say, how are you? And how's your family? But today he just said, oh, how are you? And then he just went right on. So, little things like that, even something so subtle, you actually, now, if that was the only thing, it's one thing. But then later on in the conversation, you might go, Well, Jason actually really, really loves talking about this. And when he talks about that, his eyes lights up and all that. And, he didn't do that today. I wonder, if something's going on. And sometimes when you actually do find out, it could be that something's on his mind. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe he had a lot of other stuff going on. But I think that if you are in touch with your feelings, if you're in touch with constantly have a checks and balances system, you also know your tendency to figure out what's next. And I think that's a gift.
Absolutely. Let's say we're at a party. You and I are at a party. Okay. And there's an icebreaker. You know how they do icebreakers sometimes? Well, I used to do it back in college, an icebreaker. Yeah. In this particular icebreaker, they're asking each of us to describe ourselves with one word. What word would you use and why?
One word. Wow, that's a tough one. I would say resilient. Because I think there's almost nothing you can throw at me that I don't, that I feel like I can't handle. And I'm not saying I feel like I'm such a great, crisis manager, but I really have this idea that anything that happens to me is a gift. So when somebody, lies to me, betrays to me, or, anything, literally anything that happens to me, I think to myself, like, okay, well, usually something like that actually comes with some silver lining. So where is my gift? I believe there's only like two things that could happen to you. One is you take it on and you do what you can, whatever unpleasant thing or unplanned thing that is. Then you have a goal and your goal, you fail miserably. Okay, it doesn't work out. Usually when things don't work out, you learn a lot from those. So either I got instant success by having it work out, or I've got even something better, which would be some life lesson.
Feedback, right?
Yeah. So I don't actually, and I think that a lot of those things that didn't work out for me in the beginning, such as, not having any friends, had all kinds of time, required to sketch things out in granular detail. So those things I think actually were gifts, amazing gifts later on that I would use for the rest of my life. And I think that's the lesson, anybody who's listening, if you take that attitude, that approach in life, then by definition, you don't have any failures, right?
Sure.
So I would say resiliency is probably the way I would describe myself.
When did you first decide that you wanted to work for yourself?
When I first came to America, I spent a lot of time, back in Korea. We were not rich people, but we were better off than most people out there. Korea had just gone through, as you know, it had gone through a pretty nasty civil war, which still divides the country in half. North and South is the only country that's divided now in half around the world. So it was about 10 or 15 years after the whole civil war happened. And the political aftermath just got worse and worse for a couple of decades. So things were pretty tough for most people, but my parents were, somewhat better off than most people. They were very comfortable. So my mom stayed home with the kids, and then she had help too, household help. We had a cook for us. We had a driver. My dad went to work probably like 4 days a week. So I spent a lot of time with my parents. And then when we came to America, all of our money got frozen, and they both ended up working 2 jobs. I mean, my mom ended up going to work at a sewing factory, and like she went to work at a sewing factory during the day, and then she brought home, they brought like a sewing machine in our apartment, and she would like pretty much do piecework at night. So I would say I was the oldest of the 5. And so I went from spending almost 100% of my time with my parents to no time with my parents. So I felt like I didn't know it at that time, but, because at that time I was surviving. I took care of my younger siblings. I mean, I took them on the bus to drop my brother off at nursery school, and, all these things that happen. But when I got out of college, I went to graduate school, and I got a pretty good job. Life was great. It was like my American dream. And then as soon as I got promoted, I was working more hours. I had a lot more responsibilities. And it was just, at one point, I was just getting so stressed out. I was literally working 14 hours a day in the office, and I had a 90-minute commute each way in LA. And I usually took work home. So, I thought one day, okay, well, my children are going to live the same way that I had to grow up, which was they're not ever going to see me. Here, My parents had to work like manual labor for about 2 years. My father eventually got his doctorate and everything. Things worked out fine. But for his 2 years, he lost like 40 pounds and, it was pretty rough. So I felt like here I had the means to provide for them and spend time if I wasn't so greedy. So I thought, how much money would it cost me to live a comfortable existence here in America? And I thought at that time in 1989, the number was like $36,000 a year. I thought if I could make $3,000 a month, but I could work like 25 to 30 hours a week, and I could spend that time with my family, that would be my home run. So, and I didn't want my kids, because I did the numbers and I thought, okay, I could make a lot more money, but by the time I pay for the nanny, for this and that, my quality of my life was going to be the same. If I could make 36 grand a year, and I could work what I wanted to do, which was to do jewelry design, that would be my home run. And then I thought, if I'm going to take a chance, I want to take a chance like right in the beginning, because that, beginning of my life rather than when I'm 40 or 50. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'd say like right after I got my second job, which actually paid pretty well, paid more than double, what my goal was. And I had a huge upward potential, but I thought, I can't do that.
I think you mentioned too that the market at the time was women in management positions and female executives, for example. And I want to see if you can share that. What motivated you to create your brand and fit the jewelry market niche? I find that fascinating. And I think that's intuitive too. You use your intuition there, in my opinion, to figure all that out. And it's amazing.
Jason, how that is so astute of you, because I think when you look at successes, I mean, as you know, I have an MBA and all those degrees, but I want to say the things that matter to building a business, things that matter to living the quality of life that you want to live. And when I mean, you don't need $500 million to make you happy. Okay. You're making, I'd say I was really happy when I made like 75 grand. Right? So, I mean, most people could be very happy at 150 or so. If you really like bring it down to the bare basics. So when I say quality of life, meaning the quality of the relationships you have, health, wealth, wisdom, all these things.
Balance.
A perfect balance. So I would say the way you get that isn't by some marketing book. It isn't from some sleek, ad campaign. It is really intuition, a sense of who you are, where the market's going. I would say intuition is a huge factor, because you could be looking at all these numbers. And, when you look at all these numbers, you go, I'm looking at a set of numbers, like numbers 1, numbers 2, and they're slightly different. Which one do I, even then, even if you have all these data, your intuition tells you instead of A, B, or C, I'm going to go with the D. You know what I mean? So I think intuition is really important. So what happened was back in 89, I think the graduating class of 84, like mid 80s, was the first time when female employees actually had managerial positions. We had titles like, manager, director of marketing, director of finance, and things like that. And some of us actually had, VP of something. A lot of times when you're sitting next to your male counterpart whose wife isn't working, it was really kind of rough, because those of us who worked in that managerial capacity felt like we needed to be equal, or to get equal pay, we need to actually be better than equal. So you're working like crazy, you're working longer hours. And a lot of times our bosses, like the next level up, executive vice presidents, were all men. And, we went to work looking like little guys. We had, little white button down shirts, ours might have a rounded collar. The men would have a pointed collar. And we had like tailored suits, skirt suits kind of thing, little pump stockings. I know I'm dating myself, but that is the truth. We used to do that. And jewelry industry is the oldest. I mean, it's been around for 2,000 years. Jewelry, like gold and silver that's been mined 2,000 years ago, is still in circulation today. So basically, it's an industry that just refuses to evolve. And so you have, all these working women who now, they were, the one great benefit about all these working women is they were getting paid pretty well. So they had disposable income, and they wanted to have some way to feminize their appearance, or just, feel like their true self could come out at the office. So the jewelry industry who catered to the nighttime jewelry, fancy diamonds, and this is a 2 carat, 5 carat cocktail ring to some social circles. That's very ostentatious for working women. And it's also very impractical for security point of view. And then lastly, do you really want to go to work looking, wearing something that, $100,000 to work, ask your boss for a raise, right? That's not going to happen. And then lastly, it's very impractical to create a look every day that's different, because once you buy that kind of money, you buy one in a lifetime. You're not buying more and more. So daytime jewelry at that time was mostly junky stuff like plastic. Things would be clanking and rattling. And they were very outrageous looking, like animal prints, very big and bold pieces. They're really nice today, but at that time they were very frowned upon. So there was no jewelry that really was elegant, sophisticated, understated, and enhanced who you were, pretty much adorned your personality. So when you walked in the room, instead of people saying, "Oh my God, look at that jewelry," they go, "Oh my God, there's Victoria." So I kind of focused on that look, and I marketed towards the women. Basically all my marketing material would say something like, "Hey, if you want to look polished, intelligent, you want to exude the look of success, and you don't want to pay a fortune for it, here is a collection of jewelry that's made specifically for you, designed for you." That worked really well. In fact, I got so much resistance from the market, Jason, like even after I had done like $10 million, the industry still thought I was a joke. So, well,
what would it take to establish that you weren't to be taken? You need to be taken seriously in terms of your product line. I mean, that's just something.
I'm not taken as a joke anymore.
Exactly.
9 figures. I don't think so. So that's a good news.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who's your greatest influence and why?
I love Maya Angelou's quote, which is, and it's so appropriate for my business. And that is, people will forget what you do or what you say, but they will not forget how you made them feel. And I think that jewelry is supposed to make you feel like you're special. It's supposed to make you feel like you've accomplished something. It's supposed to sort of encapsulate your milestone moments. And those don't have to be earth-shaking moments. It could be, something like, "Hey, lost 10 pounds," or "I went to school at night, finally got my high school degree," to, "Hey, I just got a huge promotion." It could be anything. But usually when you do have something that makes you feel great, you do end up getting, that's where jewelry really shines. And so when jewelers forget why they're designing jewelry, and they're like, "Oh, that cross is really cute, and I'm just going to copy that and, sell it out there," or whatever, that's when you really lose the customer. I love crosses. And when I design, I'll go through like 2-3 years of not offering a single cross. But when I do it, it will be because it's meaningful and it makes sense to somebody, because if I don't, feel like I don't have a connection to a particular design or feeling about that, then I just won't do it, because I'm just not good at faking it. So,
It's beautiful to be in your authentic path and not to deviate from that and have no fear and just pursue to be able to blaze your own trail, create your own reality, right?
Yeah. And I think, too, though, Jason, I think that if you're a small company, you don't have a lot of tools. You can't compete. Like if I got a spritzer I'm making, and I'm competing with the Coca-Colas or Pepsi of the world, you're never going to outspend them. You're not going to be outsmarting them. What you can do, though, is if you're authentic and you are, you can sell your personality. You can have many people really love you, fall in love with you, and be loyal and understand those little nuances. So if you lose that, then I would say that's your number one advantage. All of you, the good, bad, and the vulnerable, and the scared, and the confident, all of that packaged together, because Americans really don't. I don't think like they want perfection from you. They don't want, when I see people like on Instagram and things like that, and they've got like the perfect size 2 body with the perfect looking boyfriend and with the perfect hairdo,
Yawn.
I'm not inspired by that.
I yawn.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not inspired by it. You just go to the next thing, because they're not real. I think that's what I love about America. When I first came here, life was pretty harsh, but I still so loved it because And one of my favorite places in the world is New York City because everything goes, everybody's so transparent. They'll just let you know like how they feel. And sometimes you may not like it, but there's beauty in that. So I have found that when you are brutally honest with yourself and with your customers, when everybody you interact with, and you say everything with a great heart, you can really root for that underdog that's trying hard. There's no place like America that really embraces their underdogs. I mean, they're very protective of you. And so I would say embrace your flaws, really.
Even diamonds have flaws in them.
All diamonds do have flaws. I mean, there are very few that don't, but I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the most prized gemstones outside of America is jade. I think Coco Chanel had her jade. She had white jade, carved into camellias because that was her favorite flower. And I remember one time I was in Hong Kong, they had auctioned that off. And the opening bid on this thing was more than $1 million. I mean, obviously it was Coco Chanel, but it was a beautiful, piece of jade. Yeah. But the thing I love about jade is that, and the people who collect the multi-million-dollar jade, is that it gets its beauty from the flaws. Those little grains that go on, it gets its beauty from those because that gives you character and gives you the beauty of it. So I would say that if you look for the perfect boring blah, that's what you're going to get even in.
I'm a dozen.
Too. Right. Yeah.
I have a question. Since we're talking about gemstones, I collect crystals and gemstones just for spiritual purposes, actually healing for myself. And this is rose quartz, and I use this when I meditate. I just want to ask you, you delve in this world. What's your favorite gemstone for yourself that you enjoy? I know you mentioned jade just now. I was wondering what kind of stones would you say that you like personally?
Jason, that's like asking me to pick my favorite child. That's tough. Or saying like, what is your favorite dish? People have said that to me, like, what's your favorite dish? And I'm like, I don't know, because I love sushi and I love pasta and I love, the Greek food. If I had to pick one today to get one, like a ring made for myself, I would say that would be like the Paraiba tourmaline, because the color of that is like so electric and tranquil. I love the stone. It's just very expensive. I don't like it because it's expensive. Yeah. It's just that there's no other stone that looks like it. So I love that. But I do love all gemstones because it is Mother Nature creates them over 1 billion years. And it is truly in her garden. So I personally like gemstones that don't have to be treated. Like the rose quartz you have. Those are great. They're very cool to the touch. I am actually going to, I've been thinking about doing a whole healing gemstone line from a website, like on a YouTube channel, because a lot of people don't understand the properties of the incredible gemstones that we have. What's your favorite, Jason? I'm going to put you on the spot.
I like labradorite, the fish skin looking one. I use it for meditation purposes. When I do readings for people, I'll suggest rose quartz. If someone comes and asks me for guidance on a relationship or the deceased loved one, we're delving a little spiritual here, but I always tell people rose quartz is a good stone if no one's ever actually encountered meditation with crystals or just the calming, soothing nature of crystals. My living room looks like a crystal showroom because my best friend helped me set it up. It looks like a mini little design area. You can see some of them. That's just one of my favorite things I always like to find out about is how do my guests view certain crystals and that kind of thing. So
if you love labradorite, have you seen rainbow moonstones?
I have. I don't have it in front of me.
That's a sister stone.
They're beautiful.
Sister stone, yeah.
When I started doing the psychic stuff, I delved into crystal healing because I just looked at all different healing modalities. And I didn't realize that ancient Romans and the Greeks used to use citrine and rose quartz and amethyst. They used amethyst people who are hungover. They used to, for people with addictions. And I think that's like, two millennia ago. I mean, when you think about that, it's interesting,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And labradorite, moonstone, I actually do a lot of work with both of those. And if you put either the labradorite or the moonstone next to like a natural turquoise, they just take on, because all the blue hues are basically back and forth. But yeah, we digress. A lot of things from the earth actually have healing properties. And
absolutely. I'm just curious. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you this. You express your creativity in many different ways. I want to ask you about your writing. I know that you are an avid writer, and I think your whole life you've always had an interest in literature and art.
Right.
And it matches your jewelry design, and you have your business acumen. But I wanted to ask you about what motivates you to write. And I wanted to ask you about Shattered Sky. And I know you have the Living the American Dream Your Way coming out. And I just wanted to see if you could share those with our audience.
The Shattered Sky actually is a science fiction that takes place in the year 2046. And I wanted to say, first of all, I'm so blessed. I really am. I have more than I ever thought I could in terms of life experiences. So I've traveled all over the world, and I've seen, even when things were so good here in America, and we had great economic times and everybody's prosperous, unemployment rate is low. I would go to some of these countries where gemstones are actually mined, or sometimes they're cut or manufactured. And, people are living on, like $50 a month, like entire families. And when you go there, when I go to these places, I don't like to go to fancy restaurants or anything. I actually try to hang out with the people that work in the factory. And once I heard that, like how much money they were making and all that from the owner of this one particular factory, literally my heart just literally like dropped to the floor. And I just lost all my appetite. I looked at him and he said, he looked at me and he said, this guy was a very intuitive guy. And he said, I know what you're thinking and I know how you feel, because that's how I felt. And when I first came to China, so he was a Korean guy who actually opened the factory in China. He said, when I came to China and I asked, like, how much should I pay my employees? And the answer was $35 a month. My heart sank and I said, I can't do it. And this was a pretty young guy, really well-to-do, from a pretty well-to-do family who owned these factories. And he said, I created a second floor where they don't have to pay rent or do anything. They could actually live upstairs and they can work downstairs. And he said, I pay them 50 instead of 35. I was still like pretty much kind of brokenhearted over that. And he said to me, Victoria, you have to understand, these people are so happy because they are the lucky ones that they got this job, that they have any job. They're the lucky ones. They consider themselves so happy. This is their dream. This is like their American dream that they're living in. So I decided to write Shattered Sky because I've traveled all over the world and, literally had conversations and witnessed what people are capable of doing in various conditions. And it's not a political statement by any means, but I created this world where you have these extreme differences in political views, in healthcare, in terms of their views on just a lot of different things. And I created a character who's only like 16 years old, living on a small island, because when she lives in this island and she's only 16, she's clueless when it comes to the world affairs. So in the Shadow Sky, when her father is murdered, her sister is like kidnapped, and she's searching all over the world looking for the sister, she kind of sees the conditions and human reactions and how they actually treat their elderly, the young, and the sick and whoever in her periphery. So it's a murder mystery, very, very thrilling murder mystery. The thing about writing is that I have always read since I could read, and I started reading since I was like 4 years old. So I have read at least one book every 10 days or so all of my life. Even now, I go through a lot of books. So I have very high standards when it comes to, and I read everything: mysteries, murder, science fiction, fiction. I'll read the encyclopedia if I have nothing else to read. So, I read. So I wrote that book. And then in order for me to market the book, I actually got attention from HarperCollins and Random House. And, many different agencies have asked me to write a 3-book series on the Shattered Sky. So I'm on book 2 on that. But many of those people recognized me from HSN when I was on TV. And they were like, why aren't you writing a memoir or a how-to book? So my answer was, first of all, memoir sounds like I'm like 90. I said, I'm not that old. And secondly, if you lived your life, it is the most boring thing. There's nothing, I mean, trust me.
There's nothing left at that point.
My life is really boring. Okay. I said, look, I will tell you, I might be really interesting for like 2 or 3 chapters, but after that, like, it's just going to be all filler. I don't want to do it. So when COVID hit, I actually started to do a blog to help other women who are like suffering from, what's next. And women were doing a lot of work around the home. They're taking care of their parents. They're taking care of themselves, their companies, all this stuff. So I started writing blogs about how to do things to help people. And then I realized, you know what, there is a whole book in here, because like I'm teaching them how to build a website, teaching them how to go find customers, how to build a premium brand, the difference between building a brand versus building a company, just all these different things, who actually is your ideal market. I got them all together and I pitched a couple of agents, and I think I pitched 11 agents, and all 11 of them said that they will get me like a really nice advance for the book. So that book is actually being
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So you should sign up for both of them, because when they get released, you'll get first notice, and it'll be a release launch and all that stuff.
I'd love to have you come back on and discuss your books as well. I think it's always nice when an author comes on and shares their personal product. It's like one of your unique, one of a kind, beautiful jewelry designs. You are your own Van Gogh in your own way. You may not think of it that way, but think about your art. Your art's out there, and it's actually more plentiful and abundant than you realize. More than a Van Gogh in modern times.
Yeah, you know what, Jason? I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because that is my goal. And I didn't actually realize this, because I still do have the one of a kind business, which is, our average price point there is like 15,000 and up. And really the 15,000 is pretty much the low end. We do, quite a bit higher than that. But the one that's affordable, that we have it on TV, I've reached more than 10 million women. So more than 10 to 15 million pieces of jewelry have been sold. But what I want to tell you is, because I went from having pretty much what I wanted in my life to nothing, literally my parents went from having their own cook at home to cutting a single orange into 8 sections for their, 5 kids plus the parents. And I watched my mom go from, this very elegant, just, she was always careful with her money, but, she had the means to buy what she wanted, to having nothing, really had to stretch her dollars. So I felt like at that time, making my jewelry affordable to all women, no matter what age and what income group they're at, that was really important to me. But now that's why I wrote the book, because if you think about it, I get paid really, really well on TV. Like if I go on TV for a couple of hours, whatever the book is going to sell for the year, I would make that. So it would be so stupid from business level, like a business model, to write a book for like a year to sell, copies, right? Because, if you sell a book for like $10, your authors only get like $1 off of that. So it is the most inefficient use of your time to make money. But in order for me to make my teachings, really accessible to everybody so they can buy it for $10, that's a huge gift. And so I spent, an absolute insane amount of time working on the content that each of those chapters could be a book by themselves. And I decided, I was told by everybody, Victoria, like, don't give them everything. Tell them what to do, tell them why they have to do it, but don't tell them how. And I'm like, hell no, I'm going to go ahead and give them how, because if I give them my word, they're going to get it. Like, I'm not going to play around with this thing, So I think making my art accessible was key with my jewelry. For my literature and all my teachings, I think that is I'm still going to have the one-on-one teachings and all that, like I do in the jewelry arena. There are some people who do want to, buy it. If you have $250,000, $1 million to do like a piece of jewelry, there are very few people that can go to, actually. So I'm glad that I'm one of the people that they come to. And so when it comes to my teachings, I want to make sure that anybody and everybody who's got a dream, even if you don't speak English, you will be able to start it with no money. Okay. I teach you how to start a business with no money. I didn't have money to even make a single sample. I had to sketch them out and give them like a hypothetical looking, collection. So I teach you how to do it with no money, and it's going to literally cost you like basically $10, $12 when the book is published, and it's going to be an amazing book. So, and then of course, to supplement that, I will have a lot of little mini videos that are free download on my website. So if you don't have money and you just want to kind of explore that, that's there.
I want to talk $1 million hobbies. What do those words mean to you? And share that with our audience.
I'm like a little bit boneheaded when it comes to a lot of things. When I was at USC, I took a marketing course, and, my marketing professor told me I was not going to be good at marketing, to consider switching my major to finance or something, because he said that I didn't understand the nuances of marketing and all that. I was like, okay. So I went ahead and got my finance degree anyway, but I also didn't give up the marketing dream. When I did my $1 Million Hobbies, a lot of people told me not to name it $1 million hobbies, because the minute you say the word hobby, that they think it's just something you do for fun and that you're not going to ever make any money and all that. I kind of wanted to bust a myth on that, because I believe that anything you do with passion and anything you do because you love doing it is worth $1 million, at least. I'm like basically a living proof that the jewelry business is the most competitive business in the world. Okay. Let me tell you, I have traveled to, like, I don't even know how many countries I've traveled. It is just massive. It doesn't matter whether you're in Dubai or you're in some little island off of one of those cruise ships to you go to Africa. It doesn't make any difference. There's always a Chinese restaurant and there's always a jewelry shop, you know? And then of course you got bigger companies like the Tiffany's, De Beers, everybody, you know, pretty much, you know, killing you at both ends. When I can, you know, do 9-figure business with a hobby in the most competitive business in the world, with no money, and I'm talking like $30, you can do it. And I don't care if you're a chef, if you like to bake, or if you like to garden, or if you're a runner, I can make that $1 million business. But you got to be willing to do what it takes. I mean, you can't just go, hey, I want to run and pick up a check, you know?
Exactly. You got to have the passion. I think
you got to have the passion, and you have to have the
resourceful.
persistence and the resilience. You have to, because you know what? Life will happen to you. And that is the beautiful thing about life, all the things that happen to you. And one of my favorite movies of all time, and have you ever seen this movie called The Exotic Marigold Hotel?
No, I have not. Is it good?
Oh, you should watch it. It is so good. It is so good because there was two of them, but it's a British film. And basically, in a nutshell, the movie starts with many retirees. They're all anywhere from, you know, 70 to 80 years old. And they're all pretty much in a hospital or something, and they can't get their, you know, knee replaced, or they have to wait for like 6 months. And they realize they've done everything. So they have like a vice president of a major bank who retired. They had a federal judge. They had a governess. They had all these people that from different fields that thought they did all the right things, okay, for their retirement. And then when they get to, you know, after 5 years of retirement, they realize they don't have any money. So, or the money that they saved wasn't enough. So they end up getting this, like each person end up getting a phone call, like a telemarketing phone call from some guy in India saying that you could live in India where you can get medical care. You can live in this exotic, you know, marigold hotel. And it's like a dreamland. Okay. So you can come there and you could kind of live there at a fraction of the cost. So these people actually take that journey, and these people all end up meeting at the best marigold hotel. I mean, it's beautiful photography, but it is dusty and all that. And they go to the hotel, and it's run by a kid who inherited it. And it's like decrepit. It barely has running water, no doors in any of the rooms, no telephone. So, you know, it's literally like, what the heck happened, you know? So the life happens, and there was two beautiful lines actually in this movie, and it's kind of worth seeing it. So about, you know, about a month later, they're all like, okay, do we go back to England? Do we stay? I mean, they're all reacting to this differently. Some people just hate the food. Some people like, you know, hey, let's make the best of it. But one person tells the other person, yeah, I don't understand, like to the woman, like, I don't understand. Like, we've done every single thing. We planned every little second of our retirement. We have everything. And here we are. We have absolutely nothing. And we're living the most pathetic existence, you know, that we ever imagined. And the other woman, the oldest one of the bunch, says, you know, your plan A was never supposed to work out. It's when all your plans go out the window, the good stuff happens. And the movie actually ends up in a really good place at the end. But I love that line. You know, whenever I watch a movie, I look for the one line that's really great. I love that line. And then there was another line in that same movie that I loved. There's two people having dialogue. And this one lady is like, oh, I can't stand it. Like, I hate the curry. I hate this. And I hate all this. I just want to go back. And her husband says, when we go back, there's nothing there either. You know, that's why we came here. So she's arguing with the husband, and the federal judge goes out every day and he experiences all the stuff, you know, the dirt, the kids, all the stuff. So one day they're all having this argument, and the guy asks, the woman asks, you know, she asked the judge to convince the husband to go back. And he asks her, what do you hate so much about all this stuff? And she goes, I hate this. She goes through all the things she hates. And then she asks him, why do you love it here so much? Like there's nothing to love. And he says, I love it here because here people take life every single day as a gift. They don't take anything for granted. Things like that kind of shaped my science fiction, because these people are in the same place, and yet they have very different reactions, and their actions are only one of them actually end up going back to England. The rest of them actually really make a great home. And they actually help, this kid with the dream to rebuild a place and all that. But it's kind of a really,
check it out. Sounds like it's something I can watch on the weekends.
Yeah.
We're supposed to get some rain in Florida for the next few days. So it sounds like something good to watch.
When I fly to, like when I go from LA to Hong Kong, it's a 13.5-hour flight. So after 2 movies and 3 meals, you're only like 6 hours in there. So you end up either reading or watching. So what I do is I will usually finish a book on that flight, 1 book, watch a couple of movies. And so Exact Marigold Hotel was one of those. But it has become one of my favorite movies because it does give you so much to think about,
Absolutely. We're already running low on time, but I want to point one thing out. One, I think from what we were talking during our interview today, I think your creative stuff's not going to end with the stuff you've done already. I think you will move into film or some type of video production in the future with someone who's going to work with you. That's my prediction. Your creative flow is very strong. So don't be surprised if down the road you might get involved in other projects that aren't jewelry related, but might be a spinoff of either one of your stories or one of your novel. I feel like you got a lot ahead of you, a lot of opportunity coming up.
Jason, that is really interesting because I actually have been speaking with 2 different producers. One really wanted to do a life story on me, kind of like the movie Joy.
Yes.
Who actually is a pretty good friend of mine. And I didn't want to do it because I felt like I needed to open up too much more about my life, especially about my loved ones, like, my sisters and my parents. And my husband, who doesn't want to be a part of anything, they love their privacy. So I had to reject that. And then there is another producer who was talking about a different concept. So you're not too far off. You're pretty intuitive yourself, aren't you?
Thank you. Yeah, of course. I'll say this. I also, because when you were talking, sometimes I'll get images from someone's energy, and I got your full name and production. A Victoria Wieck production, something like that. It was across. Yeah. It's almost like a future movie screen or a video screen or something you'd watch. And that's something that when I get those, I share those with my guests or with people in my life. Anytime I get a premonition or some type of vision or something, I always share that. So,
right. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to ask you this, because we're running low on time. What do you recommend to any aspiring female entrepreneur who worries about the glass ceiling and the limitations in our society? And you broke that, thank God. And you did that by creating your own paradigm. But I want to ask you, what do you think your recommendation would be to any female entrepreneur? Do they have to create their own company to shatter the glass ceiling themselves? Or what kind of suggestion would you have based on your personal experiences?
It depends on what the person wants. I mean, I have friends who actually love their corporate environment because they've cut the perfect deal with their boss. They like it. They don't have to work a lot of hours. And I have a lot of friends who work is their life. But for the rest of us who search for that perfect balance, I would say try doing your own thing. I'd say for several reasons. Number one, so don't even worry with the money. Money will come when it's right. I never, ever try to make a lot of money. I mean, I try to make $3,000 a month simply. The money just came involuntarily. But I would say that you should start your own company for more than one reason. Number one, that's the only way. If you start your own company, it's the only way that you can use all of you, your whole self, to impact the world. So it's not just about you even, it's about you can accomplish happiness for you. You can have an amazing growth experience, and you'll be serving people that deserve a little bit of you. I mean, for example, if I didn't do what I did, I mean, there are millions of people. There are 10 million women who experienced beautiful, thoughtful, premium quality art, in jewelry that they're now passing on to their children, their grandchildren for $50, $75 that would have never been possible.
Heirlooms.
Yeah. So I would say that is the best way you can impact your world for the better. That's first one. Second thing is, so my daughter had a baby, last night. Let me tell you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was able to be with her all throughout her pregnancy, through all of the moments in her life, the milestone moments, because I had the freedom to work whenever I wanted. That doesn't mean I'm working any less. I mean, I got very little sleep for the last few days, but, I was able to sketch and things like that at night. So I would say if you want that freedom in everything you do, your happiness starts with freedom, emotional freedom. And then once that comes, you will get your financial freedom. So that's second. And then lastly, when you think about the glass ceiling, when you think about what you don't have. So what I'm saying is that for most of you who are listening to this show, you're probably a lot more mature than a lot of people that are just like in the middle of the wishful thinking phase. So if you're seriously thinking about what you don't have, don't listen to all these experts who have never actually lived the life of an entrepreneur, because a lot of professors or, reporters from so-and-so are talking about what you need in order for you to succeed. Like, you have to have some sneak marketing, my favorite buzzword out there now is like, what is your unique selling proposition? I mean, there's all these buzzwords out there, words like monetization. Okay, well, throw all those out the window, get back to your basics, okay? Think about what you do have to offer, because what you have to offer, if you look at the total package, what you have to offer, you'd be amazed at how much more you have than you think, because you are so told all the time you're not good enough and your marketing plan is going to suck. And, your marketing plan probably will suck the first 6 months, but you're going to figure it out. I assure you of that. Okay.
Trial and error.
You know what? The other thing too is if you don't experiment ever and you always know the outcome, then you're living a pretty sad existence, because you're never going to really experience what it's like to push the boundaries and get to the next level, right? So I would say for those reasons, I would highly encourage you to do it. And then lastly, when I started my company, I mean, I was told I was crazy. I had all these business cards from people telling, kind-hearted people telling me, when your business fails, I want to hire you. So, here's my card, I want to be the first one called because your business will fail. So I got all these, cards. I'm going to say, I was told you can't. I'm just saying that today, everything that I had to pay for when I first started my business, like a fax machine or a computer, I mean, you can literally run a business out of your mobile phone today. Calendar, Zoom, like most of these things are free. Okay. So it costs you no money. And then you have a lot of mentors out there. I'm out there writing a book. You can, contact me. I'll give you a 20-minute free consultation about, and I'll give you some really good stuff. And there are a lot of women's networking groups that you can find on Facebook that have been there and walked the walk. So when you're joining these groups, think about it, this one thing. Don't look for the Tony Robbins of the world to inspire you, okay? They'll inspire you, but even if you talk to 10 women who tried their hardest to do their business and they didn't succeed, okay, they will still teach you a lot of stuff of what's not working. So get connected. And if you're serious about it, there's plenty of help out there. So I would say, but the most important thing is the reason number one, you can impact your world and in a way that's positive. And I know you can all do it, because if an immigrant from Korea who had no friends, no English, no money, no, nothing, no mentors, I'm not going to say it was a piece of cake, but if I can do 9 figures, you can do 6. I guarantee you that.
100%.
Yeah.
I find you very inspiring. And even for our preparation, our call for the interview, I was so grateful for your tips, even just on podcasting tips that we talked to you before we got on the show.
Yeah.
Like, you have the natural mentoring ability within you that is so strong. And I think you're going to find that your success is driven within yourself. But then I also feel like the greater impact you make on people's lives is what you're doing now. Mentoring people, sharing your knowledge, sharing your insight, you have that in you. And I think that's just so rare and so something to be appreciated fully.
Well, thank you so much. And, I think many cultures have some version of this, and that like in Asian culture, they say that when an animal dies, it leaves its skin. So in the old days, when an animal dies, like a tiger dies or something like that, you would use the skin to warm yourself or, things like that. Person dies, they leave their name. by meaning that, when you think of people like Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, they left their name. What that means is they left their legacy, right? So I'm not saying that you have to be famous. I'm just saying that even with your own circle, and I know like in a lot of Jewish sayings that they, a person dies, the spirit of who they are lives among the rest of the people. So I would say that you're on this earth for a reason. And every single day you're on this earth, you have a purpose. And I know if you think you're not worthy, if you think you don't have enough of whatever it takes to succeed any of this, just throw it out the window, because you were put here for a purpose. And that purpose, you got to go search it and you got to find it. Because if you have time to complain about something, go find that purpose and try to do something about it. And lastly, and I want to leave you with this, I know that I was told that my story is inspiring, but more than, I'm not here to inspire you. I believe that encouraging, inspiring, all of these is great. I mean, I'm glad that I could be that. But remember, we started this interview at the very beginning of this interview with my statement, which is, think about the one single step, the first step. Think about the simple thing you can do today, because only actions will change your future, change your thinking, change your world. So that action could be, making a commitment, believing in yourself, or joining a Facebook group. I mean, you can come to my group if you want to, or you can, join Jason, anybody's group. It could be that, but do something. That's my only thing. So
that's beautiful. I have one last question and we'll wrap this up. If you were a spirit animal, which spirit animal would you be and why?
Everyone says if I was spirit animal, I'd be a dolphin.
Excellent. And why?
I don't know. I think, dolphins are very intelligent. They're very friendly, very compassionate. They're fun. So, excellent. I mean, I don't mind that, actually.
Perfect. Well, Victoria, I want to thank you. By the way, direct our audience, if they want to learn more about you, where should they contact you?
Yeah. So I'm very, very proud of my podcast, $1 Million Hobbies, where you're going to find some amazing guests who have done the same thing. They've taken their hobbies to $1 million. They all started their companies with no money. And you're going to get real tips. I don't have a lot of people who have done the business themselves on it. So $1 Million Hobbies on Apple and all the different platforms. And then go to victoriawieck.com, where you could learn a lot about all the stuff that's upcoming, especially all the free stuff. And for the audience that are listening today, if you have something, I can't promise much more than this, but if you have an idea, just make sure you do your homework, and you can email me ahead of time, but I will give you like a 15-minute consultation. A lot of people have trouble figuring out, because many people have many ideas. They have trouble figuring out if anything could actually come out of something. So, the first thing I do is figure out your biggest idea, the biggest opportunity. I can do that in 15 minutes. And you can come to victoriawieck.com site, and, there's like a booking thing. We're not asking you to buy anything at all. So just go ahead and do that. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I deeply appreciate it. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I know everyone deeply appreciates. Congratulations on your new addition to your family with your daughter. And I just find it such a pleasure. Your words of wisdom are greatly appreciated by our audience. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason, for inviting me and, just allowing me to share my vision, my life, and all the joys of my life with your audience. And you are, an amazing person yourself. So congratulations to your show as well.
I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. I want to thank Victoria Wieck for coming on the show today and sharing her life story, her journey, her viewpoint on such topics as spirituality and being creative and empowering others. One of the things I personally take from today's episode is no matter where you are in life, it's important to look at your point in life and see where you're headed next. And from my vantage point, a couple of things I'll say, borrowing from our conversation with Victoria today. Be resilient. Don't fear growth. Be resourceful. And above all, be impactful. Make an impact in your life and plan your life. And I believe that through your goals and dreams, you can achieve a lot. So check out Victoria's website, check out her podcast, $1 Million Hobbies. And until next time, stay positive, because when you're positive, anything's possible. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Social Psychic Radio Show. Don't forget to join us for another episode next time. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. You can also check us out on Facebook, and don't forget to visit the Social Psychic YouTube channel. Until next time, it's a big world out there. Keep an open mind, embrace your paradigms, and know that the universe is always yours to explore.